Chapter 10, Footprint Lesson. As Yo made the horrifying announcement, he took George by the hand and yanked her quickly outside the cave. Even in the waning light, they could all see the puncture in the girl's forearm. Instantly, Yo leaned down and put his lips over the wound. He began to suck the poison from it, stopped to spit out the deadly fluid, then started over again. Not a word was said by Nancy and George, but they watched intently. "That's enough," the young man said presently, and straightened up. "But don't move." George was too frightened to do anything but obey. Nancy asked, "Is there any way I can help?" "Yes," Yo replied. "Tear off some of this wild grapevine and strip off the leaves." Within seconds, the two had long streamers of it. Yo began to fashion a tourniquet around George's arm just above the wound. He directed Nancy to put another directly below it. When this was accomplished, he warned George, "Be very quiet." She stood stock still and watched his next move. Beaming a flashlight, he searched for a small, sharp stone. He cleaned it off very thoroughly on one of the grape leaves. Then he rubbed it up and down over the surface of George's uninjured arm. To Nancy, the procedure looked like hocus pocus, and she wondered, now that the danger to George was probably over, if Yo were just being silly. She soon found out, however, that he was serious. Using the sharp edge of the stone very deftly, he made a small crisscross cut over the wound. Blood began to flow from it. He explained, "Any poison left in the arm should drain out now. But you must still keep quiet, George. Anyone who has been bitten or stung should move as little and as slowly as possible, so the heartbeat will not be stimulated." The three sat down and remained quiet. Nancy asked Yo where he had learned how to take care of this type of puncture. The young man smiled. "From an old Indian over in Cherry Valley. By the way, the Indians in this territory knew a great deal about how to take care of wounds and even do minor surgery. They also knew how to use healing herbs that grow around here." As Yo removed the tourniquet, George asked him, "Was rubbing the stone over my skin some kind of magic?" "Oh no," Yo answered. "I cleaned the stone as thoroughly as I could without water or chemicals. Then, according to the old Indian, if there were any germs on it when I made the cut, they would be your own." Both girls looked at Yo with new respect. He was a puzzling person. George said to him, "You saved my life. I thank you very much." As the young man flushed in embarrassment at the praise, she added with a grin, "I suppose I'm full of germs, but I never thought of looking on my arm for them." Nancy and Yo laughed. "George," he said, "if you feel like walking, perhaps we'd better go. It's getting dark." "I feel fine now, thanks to you," George assured him. With the aid of flashlights, the trio moved forward. Nancy begged that they not descend the mountainside over such rough ground. "Can't we head for the trail and go back that way?" "Sure," Yo replied, and led the way. The trek seemed long, and the undergrowth was almost impassable. George declared it was positively a jungle. After a while, they came to the trail, but instead of turning down, Nancy stopped short. "Do you hear something?" George asked her. "No, but look at the ground. I see a very clear shoe print." Her two companions stared at the mark made by a man's shoe. Nancy beamed her flashlight around, trying to pick up a print of the person's other shoe. "There it is," she said. She leaned down and studied it intently. "If this belongs to either Sam or Mike, his right foot toes out, his left doesn't." George added, "He walks a little unevenly and puts more weight on his right heel." Yo stared at the two girls. "Are you detectives?" he asked. They did not answer, but Nancy crossed the trail and began searching in the woods beyond. But the undergrowth was so thick that shoe prints were impossible to detect. Again, Yo asked if the two girls were detectives. They smiled, and Nancy said, "We like mysteries." She and George went on searching. Presently, Nancy said, "The man is tall. He has a long stride." Moments later, the girls spied a different set of shoe prints. Nancy remarked, "These were made by hiking boots that probably look the worse for wear." "How do you know that?" Yo asked, following the girls. "You can tell by the unevenness. The man is shorter than the other one and walks straight ahead. But I'd say he makes a funny little ball-like motion with his right foot, which wears out the sole rather quickly." Yo began to laugh quietly. "I suppose, Mrs. Sherlock Holmes, that you can tell me how old each man is and if he is a crook." Nancy confessed that she could not possibly tell from the shoe print whether either man was a crook, but she would guess from the marks that both men were in top condition and walked rather quickly. "I judge they're in their late 30s or early 40s. Yo remarked that the girls were certainly wonders. He reminded them they had all planned to go home down the trail. "That's right," Nancy admitted. "And George, we should get you back to the cabin to rest." Again, George declared she felt all right and was eager to go on following the prints, so they pushed forward. Some distance ahead, they came to a darkened lean-to, almost covered with growth. When the girls flashed their lights inside, they found it empty. The shoe prints ended here. Nancy was puzzled. The two men hikers could not have gone off in the air. How did they get away without leaving any marks? Yo came up with a suggestion. Maybe from here on, the men used the old Indian method of sweeping away their footprints with a branch with leaves. "That's a good guess," Nancy told him. "You're probably right." "Maybe I can qualify as a detective's assistant," the young man said, laughing. "Could be," George agreed. Nancy had bent down to pick up something her flashlight had revealed inside the lean-to. Then she grasped a second object. "What are they?" George asked. Nancy spread them on the palm of her hand and held it out. "Bobby pins!" George exclaimed. "A girl has been here. But why didn't she leave any footprints?" Nancy said that she might have, but that as Yo had suggested, the marks could have been brushed away. Yo was intrigued. "Do you think she could have been the girl who looks like you, Nancy?" "Yes. You saw her going into the woods, so these might be hers. I think I'll leave them. She may come back here and could be captured." The girls found no more clues and followed Yo to the trail. It was very dark by the time they said goodbye to him and entered the cabin. "Thank goodness you're back," said Bess. "Why, George, whatever happened to you?" Bess had noticed the mark on her cousin's arm. "Oh, a little confrontation between me and a poisonous centipede." "What?" Bess cried. "Why, he might have killed you." When she and Miss Drew were told the story, they too praised Yo for his quick action. Aunt Eloise noticed Nancy's scarf. "What are you carrying in there?" Nancy untied her bundle and turned off the lights. The luminescent mushroom glowed brightly. "How marvelous!" Bess remarked. "What are you going to do with it?" "Take it to Karen," Nancy replied. She looked at her wristwatch. "It's still early. Bess, let's drive over to her camp now and present it." Bess was eager to go, so the two girls set off in Nancy's car. When they reached Karen's camp, the counselor was just coming back to her tent. She greeted the girls warmly. When Nancy presented her gift, Karen was thrilled. "Where did you find this?" Nancy told her and gave Karen directions to the cave. "But be careful. There are bats and poisonous centipedes in the place." Karen's eyes grew large. "Oh, I'd hate to face them. I'll think twice about going there. But thanks millions for everything. This was a wonderful find." At that moment, her young campers began to arrive, so Nancy and Bess said goodnight and headed home. Early the following morning, the girls spent an hour cleaning and straightening the cabin in preparation for the boys' arrival. Nancy moved into her aunt's bedroom and changed the sheets and pillowcase on the bed she had used. Aunt Eloise had gone to pick some wildflowers and set them on the combination living dining room table. "What time are the boys getting in?" George asked. "Between 5 and 5:30, I believe," Nancy told her. The group went out to the porch to sit down and rest before going swimming. They heard footsteps on the path leading to the cabin and soon saw Miss Armitage approaching. "Good morning," she said cheerily. "How is everything going?" "We used scuba diving equipment a couple of times," Nancy replied, "and really are hunting hard for the child's coach. So far there hasn't been a clue, but yesterday we did make a real find." She told the woman about the valuable old coins. "That's wonderful," Miss Armitage said. "Do you plan to scuba dive this morning? I came down here hoping to watch you. I thought maybe I might bring you luck." "Yes, we're going very soon," George spoke up. "In fact, I think I'll get ready now." Nancy and Bess followed her, and in a little while they were ready to make another search for the buried coach. Nancy held the metal detector, and the three friends disappeared under the water. Miss Armitage and Aunt Eloise watched intently. "They're wonderful, brave girls," the visitors stated. "Yes, they are," Miss Drew agreed. "But sometimes Nancy becomes too enthusiastic and runs into danger." Within minutes, Nancy rose to the surface and swam to the dock. "Come here and get a treasure," she exclaimed, setting an object on the dock. The object proved to be a child's metal piggy bank that rattled with coins. Both women laughed heartily as they returned to the porch. Miss Drew went inside to make some coffee. A minute later, she heard Miss Armitage give a blood-curdling scream. What could have happened? Aunt Eloise asked herself in alarm as she rushed to the porch. End of chapter 10.